70 people were thought to be on that boat at the time. When it sank, it has not deterred others who are desperate to cross the channel, and these live pictures do suggest that more are trying today. I'm guessing that's the French Coast Guard who's alongside?
It would look and appear so. We saw that inflatable just briefly earlier leaving the coastline there, so we would assume that's the French authorities. And an interesting point that's been made in the past couple of days...
It's turning round, isn't it?
It's spinning there. I don't know whether that's under control or a loss of control for that vessel at the moment.
I think it's probably the Coast Guard saying go back. But we'll see.
We'll see. And Gerald Darmanin, the French Interior Minister, saying that dinghy yesterday having 70 people on board. It's hard to tell how many are on this, but some interesting stats. 4 times as many people on a boat in 2024 than in 2020. So there were about 13 people on a small boat on average in 2020. We're now seeing, on average, 52 per vessel. And you can see there just the number of people. We heard yesterday in that tragedy, despite 70 people on board the boat, only 8 life jackets amongst them.
Well, that's what actually the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, was saying yesterday when she immediately responded to the death of those 12 people in the Channel. She said that the gangs behind the callous trade had been cramming more and more people onto increasingly unseaworthy dinghies. And then she went on to say this is essentially exactly why their work to try and smash these gangs needs to hurry up, essentially. But, you know, for many people, it can't come quick enough when people are drowning. And, you know, so many statements from successive Home Secretaries on this with very little movement when you look at the figures.
Looking at these pictures live, obviously French time is an hour ahead. This is a very dynamic situation. We do believe that that small vessel next to the dinghy is indeed the French Coast Guard, trying to convince those on board that the best thing to happen for them would be for that boat to return to land, given what happened yesterday when at least 12 people died, including a pregnant woman and several children. Frustration, desperation, realisation that they have been spotted, but the Coast Guard are doing what they can in order to try to keep these people safe and alive. I crossed the Channel quite recently, actually, in a relatively big ship. And it's, even on a quiet, calm day, it's an area where you don't really necessarily want to be. And these people are just on an overcrowded, flimsy dinghy, inflatable. They must be absolutely terrified at the moment. Can't begin to imagine how they must be feeling.
Just looking at a closer image of that dinghy, and you talk there of the overcrowding, you can see that people are sat on the edge of the dinghy, each of them astride what looks like the inflatable side with their legs over the edge, one leg in the vessel, one leg on the outside. It's impossible to count how many people are on board, but by the look of this slightly closer image, at minimum 30, if not more, but they're with white trainers on, one after another, in close proximity, sat on the edge of that vessel, their toes just dangling in the water of the North Sea.
Have they got life jackets on?
It's hard to tell. There is what looks to be some people with that kind of typical orange-red colour on them, but I can't tell you whether that's a jacket, I can't tell you whether that's a life jacket, but I would say that not everybody seems to have that colour on their torso. So if they are life jackets, I think it's fair to say it's a similar situation to that we saw yesterday, that not everybody has been issued one by whoever was in charge of the departure of that vessel.
OK. As we continue to look at this, just remind us, Mari, if you would please, it's the leadership contest today for the Conservatives. Some of them are saying that they would bring back the Rwanda policy, ill-fated, others would say, whereas the present Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is suggesting that what they need to do, what the government needs to do, is get to the criminal gangmasters.
Yeah, exactly. That's the big difference, really, between some of the leadership contenders in the Tory party contest that is up and running today and the Labour Party position. So the Labour Party position was to scrap the Rwanda policy. They said it was never going to work. They said it was a gimmick and that it was costing way too much money and it wasn't actually going to stop what we're seeing on our screens now. And as you say, James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick, leadership contenders have both said that they would bring back the Rwanda scheme for this exact reason. They are still adamant that they think it would stop people being incentivised to get on these really dangerous boats. You can see so many of them right there squished on and potentially, you know, as we saw yesterday, losing their lives. Other leadership contenders have started a bit of a debate about the ECHR and the UK's membership of it, and whether that maybe is a way to try and find a way to disincentivise people from coming. And also, let's not forget, we had the illegal migration bill that was implemented in the Conservative Party, which was all about trying to essentially criminalise people for coming to the UK illegally and saying, if you come illegally, you will not be allowed to stay. So it's quite a complicated business, and the Labour Party are really trying to wash their hands of the previous Conservative Party's legacy when it comes to the policy and also the rhetoric around trying to stop the boats as they said they would, which they didn't.
You're just tuning our way, just up to 9:15 here on Sky News, 10:15 off the coast of France, and we're looking at live pictures. This looks like an overcrowded Zodiac with migrants attempting to cross the channel from Wimereux in France, less than 24 hours after at least 12 people, including a pregnant woman and several children, lost their lives when they were trying to do exactly the same thing. The sea, we're told, much calmer today. Why is this boat not moving forward? Well, a little bit earlier, when we had a slightly wider shot, we could see that there was a French Coast Guard small vessel monitoring the situation, undoubtedly appealing to these people not to risk their lives and to go back to shore. We've now seen a bigger vessel, again, I'm guessing French Coast Guard, has arrived on the scene as well. It does appear that the captain of this vessel is considering his options. It's staying more or less in the same place for now, as he undoubtedly talks to the people on the boat, perhaps talks to his paymasters as well, and decides what the next step could be. They may well return to land in Wimereux, perhaps to see what happens on another day, or potentially they could be arrested depending on what the French authorities are doing on land. But it does look as though it is moving back, I would suggest, to the coast again, at least for now. As I said, the shot a little bit wider, you will see two French vessels from the Coast Guard. It does look, though, as though, I would say, Gareth, look, you can see the wave in the water there. It does look as though they're returning to land for now.
Some movement there. A couple of minutes ago, we also saw what looked like a bag being thrown overboard, a dark object that was thrown off the boat and landed in the water, and the vessel departing from it. But like you say, it does appear as though there's movement at the front of this vessel. I think the thing that always strikes me, that often gets so lost in the debate politically, is that the people on board this vessel often have left places like Eritrea, for example, in Africa, travelled through the Sahara, paid gangs that have taken them through incredibly torrid conditions, arrived in Libya, a country that is in complete disarray, then travelled across the Mediterranean, arrived, as we see here, a French authorities' boat, but arrived then in southern European countries who also don't want them, and have made their way, paid more smugglers to get to the French coast. This is, for many people, a very short part of a very, very long, arduous, deadly, expensive, difficult journey. And whilst we focus on 27 miles, there are thousands of miles involved in this process.
Yeah.
There are so many very sad stories, and we see the culmination of them on our shores. But it's a process that goes far, far, far further back.
Yeah, and Mari, whatever your politics, and we've been talking about, depending on who, which side of the political divide you're on, should happen to these people. As Gareth was saying, they're almost there. They've made this deadly journey through thousands of miles. They finally boarded this inflatable in the early hours when it was dark, potentially with their kids as well. They just think 27 more miles and we're across, and then they get spotted. The terror they must be feeling at them, and frustration in equal measure they must be feeling at the moment as they await their fate. On a human level, your heart has to go out to them.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it, Kay? I think if you put the politics aside for a second, on a personal level, some of these people will have potentially spent their last dime getting on that boat. They will have staked all of their hopes on this journey.
And there's no refund for them?
Of course not, because it's it's an illegal trade. It's not like you can take them to the ombudsman, for instance. There are criminals who are essentially facilitating your illegal passage, and therefore there are no guarantees, there are no safety checks, and this is what the government continue to say on both sides actually as well. The Conservative Party is that the criminal gangs, they don't care about the well-being of the people, because that is why they continue to load the boats so overcrowded to the point where they then sink or burst or whatever it might be. And you're absolutely right. On a personal level, this is the final leg of, for many people, an incredibly dangerous, expensive, scary journey. And so you can imagine for some people, they may have been through worse than this boat trip on getting here, and therefore this might not even be the worst part of the journey. There might have been other parts that were even more dangerous or more scary. We have no idea, what these people have gone through.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the protocol is on a story like this. Just tuning our way, watching Sky News live pictures from Wimereux, just off the coast of France. You can see more migrants attempting to cross the channel, but they have been spotted by the French authorities and now keeping a distance from this vessel. I'm guessing, of course, Gareth, they must also be very concerned at the French Coast Guard that they do everything they can not to sink this vessel,
no.
as indeed they're trying to help those on board.
No, and that's been one of the challenges that, as the UK and the French authorities have worked to try and deter migrants from leaving, as they've worked to secure the channel crossing as well and put more fences, more security, whatever, it's forcing migrants, or at least they feel forced, to try and then leave the shore from even more difficult, remote, dangerous locations as well. So you have that balance of trying to, from the perspective of both governments, stop this issue. It, in many respects, is moving the issue further down the coast, and we're seeing, like you say, people leaving in complete darkness, having to try and, from their perspective, evade the authorities because they want to make this crossing. And now you have the situation where you have people who will pay thousands of pounds to get on a tiny piece of rubber, who will be desperate to make that crossing, to Mari's point. And you have the French authorities who are trying to preserve and protect lives, but at the same time also try and deter this highly lucrative trade, but also highly deadly.
French authorities moving in once again closer, the closest we've seen it actually now. I think basically telling them in whatever language they're speaking that this journey is not going to happen today.
The desperate measures they take. There's got to be a better way of doing this.
What's happening as far as Afghans?
Well, the issue now is we've got many of people we need here, but still a few who are stuck. My big concern at the moment, actually, frankly, is Afghan women and the way they've been mistreated, and the latest Taliban issue.
2 years ago, isn't it nice?
It's more than that now. It's
30
It's 3 years.
Yeah, it's 3 years.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll put it. Yeah, it was August 21.
Right. But you also want to talk to us about what's going on in Ukraine. There has
déjà
Surtout en Angleterre,
en Angleterre, à la sortie, ils sont là.
ils étaient au moins une dizaine en dessous d'un arbre assis sur une pelouse. On les a croisés.
Oui, j'ai vu un peu. Malheureux, c'est eux qui ont mis le matériel et tout, et faire ça. Ils font les femmes et tout. C'est ça qui est. Comment? Ah oui, c'est les Anglais, c'est des Anglais. Il y en a même des Anglais aussi. Mais ça vient de chez nous déjà.
Quoi que nous, on se demandait.
Ouais. Ah bah non. Ouais, ça fait longtemps ici, nous. Mais en Angleterre, on voit. On voit qu'un, moi.
Vous en voyez deux, vous? On en voit plein. Maintenant, c'est un petit bateau qui fait que d'ailleurs.
Un bateau qui
Il vient
tourne autour,
descendre
là.
le contour, forme une arture. Il a les entours.
Là-bas, oui, il tourne autour. On a plus de temps.
C'est un bateau qu'on peut essayer aujourd'hui.
J'en ai passé trois voitures dans la rue. Oh, bah oui, la plus. Mais là-bas, ils étaient. Depuis hier, c'est parti. Il y a plein de voitures aussi. Le bateau. Ah oui, c'est fou.
Au fort d'Angleterre, on arrivera mieux à les voir. Au fort d'Angleterre, qui en vient avec une voiture. Ils sont par là-bas.
Ah si, il est là-bas, la voiture. Oh, là, il y en a. Alors il tourne et puis il y a un bateau qui tourne autour d'eux. Il ne faut rien faire, il y a le bateau dans la moto.
C'est parti des bulles, là. Dans les bulles, il y en aurait deux.
Ah oui, nous, pour voir la femme du haut, tu dis c'est quoi ça? C'est pour fêter le fête, il y a des amis, ça vient de Merci, bonne journée. Ah, puis voilà, tu fais pas tout.
C'est pas ça. Il a dit que la femme, il dit. Trois jeunes. Trois jeunes, je m'en rappelle pas. Je pense que c'est encore des femmes.
encore en profiter de l'eau comme d'habitude.
Parce que l'Angleterre, elle a combien là d'abord? Je sais pas si en noir, c'est les choses qu'on veut vraiment.
Ouais, c'est pas que ici, c'est pas 46.
46, mais
Non, non,
46
kilomètres.
kilomètres. Ah, quand même. Ah oui. C'est pas rien.
Un peu plus loin. Oui, parce que le plus près, c'est Calais. Et Calais, c'est 30.
Oui.
Donc, c'est différent. Je sais plus.
veux
On
plus
m'a dit les
traverser la
côtes,
Calais, là,
quand on discutait avec les côtes, vous voyez les côtes, elles sont à la il me semble qu'on m'a dit 46.
D'accord.
Il me semble, parce que c'est plus confiance. C'est pas beaucoup et beaucoup.
46, c'est une moyenne de
Puis je
connaissance.
pense
C'est pas mal, hein.
ouais, traverser ça, et après ils doivent galérer un minimum.
La Calais, ils sont tellement beaucoup, on n'a pas
Sans
pu
gaffe,
traverser tout ça.
non, c'est pas bon. Un globus, quoi. Tu vas arriver en bateau.
C'est joli là-bas.
Ouais, là-bas, pour les vacances.
Ah oui, ok. On est bien.
Oui, je veux dire, c'était dire, je peux faire ici, c'était il y a eu souvent, mais c'est bien ici, c'est tout. On s'est, ouais, on se promenait sur la route. Ah oui, c'est loin.
Bon, allez, bonne journée. Bonne journée à vous. Au revoir. Allez. Ça va où on a alors nous on a et il se trouve dans un champ des fois il y a des fois nous il y avait toujours alors il nous dit les associations était tout près quand on est arrivé, nous, mais maintenant plus ça va, moins on le voit.
Ce qui est dans l'eau.
Non, non, ils sont vers le fond.
Ah si, je les vois, il y a le bateau qui est devant eux, c'est pour ça.
Vous voyez le bateau à droite, là, le petit bateau qu'on voit au loin à
Oui,
droite.
oui, oui.
Ah ben ils sont en avant, eux.
Ah, le bateau tout ça.
Ah oui, on les voit là, Pierre, on les voit là. Hier soir, maintenant, là.
On les voyait bien, tout à l'heure.
Oui, parce que moi, c'était quand c'est pas commencé, c'était.
Je les vois.
Il y a toute une série, tout ça. Ils sont partis monter, ils sont dans les deux.
Oui, c'est dans le sud.
Ça, je sais pas. Ça me sent pas.
Ah, ils sont là-bas. Ils arrivent à... Ils sont là.
Et pareil, quand on était à pied dans l'eau, on avait la police était là, et toute une partie, c'était monté dans le dos.
Hello again, everybody. You're watching The Breakfast Show here on Sky News. These are live pictures from off the coast of France. A short time ago, we could see a small boat that was had set sail in an attempt to arrive in England. It was intercepted by the French authorities. Latest on that, I'm not sure. These are latest pictures as opposed to live pictures. You can see how much that vessel was overcrowded. Katie and Ian are here. How much of the Tory leadership campaign will be dominated by what's going on like this?
Well, I think you can already see migration being a big issue in some of the campaigns. Robert Jenrick, I think it's front and centre in terms of both legal migration, illegal migration, small boats. So I think that it will probably just intensify that. And I think when you have one candidate speaking a lot on it, it forces all the other candidates to move onto that turf, particularly because it's also something reformers like these talk about. And then you get back to the question of, is Nigel Farage going to outflank the Tories on this issue?
It's funny, when you think back, it wasn't that long ago that we had Liz Truss versus Rishi Sunak for the leadership. And during that contest, neither of them really talked about this issue at all. In fact, immigration as a whole kind of didn't come up once it was the two of them there. We all kind of concluded both of them are probably quite relaxed about immigration, really. Now, I mean, both of those two figures have obviously changed their language on this hugely. And you look at where it is in the contest now, that it's something you have to talk about. You have to demonstrate your kind of reactionary machismo by being as hardline as humanly possible. And by that, just in those few years, you see how quickly the Tory party has moved towards the right on this issue in particular.
Grenfell report out in about an hour and a half, less than that, an hour and a quarter.
het gaat verder dat je te zien kan. Best nog verder. We doen het alsof dat het best nog.
Nee, nee, je moet
Dit is
zo.
dat hij gunt.
Ja,
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 ja.
ja.
Hij ziet helemaal.
Ja.
En veel geen dingetjes. Nee, je ziet dat kinderen zijn doen.
Naast lief dan
Niet
doe je
zo.
het.
Naast laag, hè? Ja, naast
Ja, ja, want zo is het.
waarschijnlijk is dat
We zien zelfs dat. Kunnen een stukje richting en dan als het te lang is, komen we terug. Ja. Op het strand, wild strand ligt nog langs Simmer. Ah ja, wel duinen, doe wel duinen en als je door die duinen gaat komen, dan moet je denk ik van tal. Dat we door duinen en alles.
Ik denk zo dat weggegeven zo gaan.
Wel, we gaan even. Ja, ja, maar één is niet. Dat is afspraken. Dat is niet dat je direct van de zin of ding dat komt dat je dat ook moet. We kunnen even hè. Als het te lang wordt, komen we terug. Als je toeristen zijn, als je een fameuze Ulla
Kan ik je zien of dat met filmpje ligt?
Ah ja. Vous savez combien ça longtemps à pied pour la mer ou sur la plage?
Je sais pas.
Pas d'ici.
Ouais, je sais pas.
Allez, welke?
Ja.
Hey, are you? Yeah. Okay. I've got 5% live view battery left. I got about 7 minutes. Are you able to get a live going? And then I'm gonna drive over to that village. Okay. Thanks.
Just a day after a tragedy yesterday.
Yeah, hi, Wilfred. You know, it is a day of daily dramas, the sort of things that take place in Calais, in northern France, on a daily basis. So let's start with where I am at the moment. We're just north of Calais, and we are here with French riot police. They have been behind me in a forest clearing, moving out Eritreans who live in this forest clearing in an unofficial campsite, if you will, as they attempt to make the crossing to the UK. France has got a policy, a no fixation policy. They don't want migrants living in these unofficial campsites, in these forest clearings. And today the police have come along early this morning. They have cleared out the site, and what they will do is they will essentially destroy it. They'll cart off all of the tents, the mattresses, and that has already happened here, and then they will destroy the site. They don't want these people to come back, and they have bussed out some of them. One bus we know has gone to northeast France, so gone quite a long way away. You mentioned Wimereux. We know at the moment that there is a boat heavily laden with migrants. It is manoeuvring off the coast. Wimereux is about 35 kilometres south of Calais. It's also the place where the boat which overturned yesterday, where we saw the deaths, at least 12 people dying. That boat left from Wimereux as well yesterday. Today, same beach. We've got a heavily laden boat off the coast. What's happening in that situation? It's possible, even probable, that the people on that boat are figuring out how to use it. Heavily laden, the people on board, it will be the migrants themselves trying to maneuver it, trying to steer it. They'll be trying to get used to the boat before they make the crossing over to the UK. As I said, a daily drama. We see these sorts of things happening here all the time. Few more details I can give you about what happened yesterday. We do now have a better understanding of the numbers involved. At least 12 dead. Amongst the dead, one pregnant woman, 6 children as well. A local prosecutor has said that the majority of the casualties were from Eritrea, a country in East Africa, and we believe that some of the people on that boat came from this camp. We're actually living at this camp where we are in northern Calais. I can also tell you that 51 people were rescued by the French authorities, something of a miracle really when I tell you that the French authorities said that they only found a handful of life jackets at the scene. The business, the people smuggling business, it continues. It continues afoot. We're seeing that today. It doesn't stop because people have died. It continues to go on. People will take the risk. They will take the chance, the opportunity if they have it. They're not going to stop. We were speaking to a group this morning, many of whom did know about what happened yesterday. They are certainly not going to stop. People are determined to get to the UK.
John, thanks so much for that. John Sparks there for us, northern France near Calais. Let's speak to our Westminster political correspondent, Mari Aurora now. Mari, great to see you. How's Downing Street reacting to all of this?
Morning, Wilfred. Well, so far we haven't heard from Downing Street in reaction to this, although yesterday, obviously, we did hear from Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, when the news was broken about those 12 people who had perished in the Channel. So I will give you an overview of what she said in her response. Some of what she said was about how the gangs behind what she said is the appalling and callous trade in human lives have been cramming more and more people into increasingly unseaworthy dinghies. She then went on to talk about how the work to dismantle the dangerous and criminal smuggler gangs and to strengthen border security is more vital, really, than ever, and that it must proceed at pace. And she is right in terms of the fact that actually these gangs are filling up these boats more and more. So actually, if people want to read more about this, they can read on the Sky News website. But we have a really good graphic on the Sky News website that actually really outlines the average number of people on these small boats. So in 2020, it was about 13 per boat, whereas now in 2024, the average has gone up to about 52 people per boat. So they are being really crammed on these boats, massively overcrowded, and therefore obviously weighing a huge amount more, making it a lot more dangerous, making the people smugglers obviously more cash, essentially, and improving their profit margin, but actually making it more dangerous. And just as John Sparks was outlining about that awful 12 people who died yesterday in the Channel, 6 of whom were children, 1 a pregnant woman, and 65 so far rescued as well. And then on the other side of the political debate, we've actually got people like James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick, who, not specifically in relation to these specific deaths, but in relation to small boats crossings like the one you've just seen this morning, where we saw that boat off the coast of Wimereux, they are talking about the fact that the only way to disincentivise these kinds of small boats crossings is actually to revive the Rwanda scheme that has been scrapped by the Labour government, by Yvette Cooper and Keir Starmer. And actually, that's the only way this is ever going to stop, is to try and to stop people wanting to come in the first place, rather than trying to just stop the criminal gangs that they say is not alone going to be enough. Now, today is the first PMQs of the parliamentary term, as it were, back to school this week. And interestingly, we know that things like, the winter fuel payments might come up at PMQs, but it will be interesting to see whether this is also mentioned in the chamber, considering the horrific loss of life we saw yesterday, and then also the images that you've been seeing this morning on your screens around more people trying to get across to the UK.
All right, as always, thanks so much. And of course, PMQ's due at 12.